This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 862 of Horse Tip Daily. A different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you, one day at a time. Greetings, horse people. Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today, Hillary Moore Hebert, senior editor of Dressage Today magazine and DressageToday.com, joins Dressage Radio Show co-hosts Reese Koeffler-Stanfield and Philip Parks with some great insight and advice on getting the best dressage performance from your OTTB. And we'll get right to our tip after this message from Kentucky Performance Products.
This Nutrition Minute is brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products, the company that simplifies your search for research-proven nutritional supplements at kppusa.com.
The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Electrolytes. Who needs them? Your horse, that's who. Electrolytes perform critical functions within your horse's body. They help regulate nerve and muscle functions by carrying electrical impulses between cells. In addition, electrolytes assist the body in maintaining a healthy fluid balance by controlling your horse's desire to drink. When your horse loses significant amounts of electrolytes and fluids, problems such as dehydration, muscle cramping, fatigue, tying up, and colic may occur. Even in mild forms, these conditions can have a negative impact on your horse's ability to perform and recover after exercise. Top riders and veterinarians turn to Summer Games Electrolyte to keep their horse healthy in hot weather, and you can too. Summer Games replenishes the electrolytes and trace minerals lost when your horse sweats, and it stimulates the thirst response so your horse continues to drink and stay properly hydrated. So when the going gets hot, trust Summer Games Electrolyte from Kentucky Performance Products to protect your horse.
This Nutritional Minute has been brought to you by Kentucky Performance Products. You can find all of their terrific products at kppusa.com.
Well, it is our pleasure to have Hillary Moore Hebert, senior editor for Dressage Today, on for our monthly segment. Hillary, how are you doing this week?
Hi, I'm great. How are you guys? So, we are starting off a two-part series with Louise Robson, who is really cool. She trains thoroughbreds that are off the track, and she rides Queen Elizabeth's horses, and she retrains them in dressage and has had great success with them. So she did a two-part training article on how she retrains the Queen's off-the-track thoroughbreds for dressage. And her tip, which I thought was really neat, is she rides in a neck strap with horses as they're learning balance, so that as they are kind of finding their own balance, even though she's a very skilled professional, she's not afraid to, just grab onto that so she doesn't get taken along with them and then also throw them off balance. So that I thought was a neat tip. We actually did a sidebar with judges talking about what has happened with the trends, and I thought it was neat where they were saying, and this I thought is sort of a training tip, our dressage tests have strayed away from the strength of the walk having value, and the thoroughbreds really tend to excel in the walk over the trot and canter versus the warm bloods. And so as the tests are getting rewritten, there's more emphasis on the trot and canter work in some of the tests. You can end up having that struggle just with the math of the test, based on where you have sort of the stereotypical strengths based on your breed. And I thought that was an interesting thing to think about, and how when you're riding and looking for your points, if you have a horse that has a stronger walk and maybe not so much of a stronger trot and canter, saying what can I do for my preparation and in my test riding that can pay attention to that.
That's a great tip. We're getting ready for a horse show this week, and we were talking about that this week, and especially because I have a young rider doing the Grand Prix, and the walk in the Grand Prix, the extended walk and the collected walk are double scores. it's worth more than the passage transition after the collected walk. So, it's a good thing to think about and not forget. We all take breaks in the walk. I do it. I find myself like, relaxing. I'm just walking. I'm taking a little break, but it really shouldn't be. And we should all really remind. So that's a great tip. So Hillary, what's the next one?
Okay. So the last tip that I have for you guys, I think is really interesting. We've kind of been doing this thing where we've been talking a lot about balance in the different issues, and we're continuing this with a neat article by Dr. Ulrich Seal that talks about how your balance affects your horses. And it's very interesting. The exercise that they suggest is to take a pole, like you'd imagine someone who is on a tightrope walking, like a long pole, and hold it in both your hands and then one of your hands, and try to do the exercises that your horse would do to give you a sense of where the balance is. And they said you can feel if you're off balance and leaning in, it's like that pole is dropping to the side, and you can see how it kind of sucks you in if you're doing a circle if that pole's not balanced. And so I thought that was really interesting to think of how your balance affects the horse, but from that horse's perspective.
Oh, I like that a lot. I mean, you got to kind of try and feel how the horse moves, and I, this is a big problem, with some beginner riders and stuff, like, kind of overriding the inside rein and not pushing the horse around the turn, and just doing it yourself and trying to feel like, when you make a circle, all the weight, where the weight shifts, right, and how to do a better job by counteracting, right. I think, I try and tell my students that, when you use your inside rein, how does that affect what happens with the rest of the horse, right? Like, how are you counterbalancing everything you do with an equal and opposite kind of reaction? I think it's a little bit physics and just really takes a lot of thought to think about, what you're doing and how to not make more of a problem by doing it, right?
Well, and I think it's interesting where you talked about with that inside rein, because we always kind of tend to want to do that motorcycle turn on a bending line where we crunch our inside down from our armpit to our hip, and we kind of have our hip fall out a little bit too much, and it starts to throw the horse outward. But then you use that inside rein, and if you sort of do it right now in your seat, you can feel how too much of that also then aggravates that same thing. It kind of encourages you, even if you weren't before, to crunch down to the inside again, throw that opposite hip out, and it all kind of creates this self-fulfilling prophecy of imbalance.
I love that visual of the motorcycle turn. I just wrote it down in my notes from the show. I was like, motorcycle turn, that's a great analogy and a great way to think of that, because that's exactly what it's like. That was excellent. Yeah. I like that visual. Absolutely. And we all do that. I mean, again, that's a common thing that you have to be very, very careful and always keep an eye on around your circles, around your corners, that type of thing. Because, again, that is something that everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think just an extra point with, sorry, Hillary, but I was just going to say that an extra point with that is just think about changing speeds in turns. And you can do that on the ground as well without a horse or on a bicycle or something, like when you go faster, how does that affect the speed? When you go a little bit too slow, you also lose balance. So yeah, just take the horse out of the picture and try and keep your own balance while doing some of these things is, again, interesting to think about.
Well, I was going to say, I can't remember what month, but it stuck with me enough to remember the visual of it. Our Backpage Solutions, where it's those quick tips that have the drawing with it. And we had one where they said, as you're riding, really picture it as though you have a toddler on your shoulders. And think about, as you're riding, what kind of things would you need to do to keep that person above you upright. And if you start to lean into a turn, you could never be able to support someone on your shoulders if you were leaning into the turn too much. And how do you sort of feel like you constantly are upright enough that you can support that? And that's something for me that I keep with me and remember to help think about balance.
That's a great one too. And going back to the back page of the magazine, the solutions page, I have a client that in her tack room, the wallpaper is that page. She tears it out every magazine and she puts it on the wall. And it's really interesting to go into her tack room and look at it because they are visual. That's the point of them. And it's a great thing to look at. It's the last page of the magazine every month, and it's great to take a look at it and or tear out a few that you like and keep them around because they are very, very helpful items that come every month.
And that takes care of it. If you enjoyed Reese and Philip chatting about all things dressage, you can tune in every week at dressageradio.com. You can also find lots more tips about topics ranging from barn care to websites for horse people on horsetipdaily.com. Just look for the topics drop-down menu on the left. And now you can have all of the Horse Radio Network shows with you wherever you go with our new free app for iPhone and Android. Just go to your app store and search Horse Radio Network. And don't forget to support our sponsors here on Horse Tip Daily because they do make these podcasts possible. Today's podcast has been brought to you through the generous support of Kentucky Performance Products. Ask for Kentucky Performance Products at your local tack and feed supplier, or you can visit them online at kppusa.com. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.